Welcome to our webinar, Type at the Speed of Mind with Lightkey. This webinar is hosted by the Network of Assistive Technologists on this Friday, the 24th of February, 2023. Joining us today are Guy Katabi and Aaron Brower from Lightkey. And Guy Katabi is passionate about finding ways to use technology in order to make a positive impact on people's lives. With over 17 years of experience in software engineering, ranging from user experience to machine learning, Guy founded Lightkey with his partner, Aaron Brower. Together, they developed a computer software that delivers a new writing experience that saved millions of keystrokes to its users in more than 170 countries worldwide. And Aaron Brower, who is unfortunately not able to be with us at this moment today, he's with the Lightkey team and believes that the greatest gift is the ability to empower others. Inspired by innovation and design, Aaron has over 20 years of extensive experience working among the business, government, and philanthropy sectors. Bridging between romance and realism, advocating philanthropy and sustainability as a way of living, Aaron joined Guy in 2016 to create Lightkey. And today, I want to hand over the presentation to Guy, and if Aaron's able to join us throughout the presentation, he may pop in. It's great to have you here, Guy. I want to hand over the screen sharing to you and let you show us all about Lightkey.
Sure. So first of all, Doug, thank you for the kind introduction, and thank you all for being here today. So let's just dive right in. I will share my screen, just a moment. Okay. Just making sure. Yeah. So we begin our journey today with a discussion about typing. So pretty much since the invention of the typewriter, we have been typing most of our content, especially professional content, pretty much the same. Everything is manually, word by word, letter by letter. And I think that the interesting question to ask about it is it okay? And I think there are two answers to that question. The numeric answer is that typing is inefficient. We spend 30 workdays a year just on typing. We need to use this mechanical physical device called the keyboard, and sometimes we hit the wrong key to some percentage. And long sessions of typing over time create some form of wrist pain. So it seems like from the numbers, typing is not that a great habit to keep. But there is a deeper explanation that has to do with the way our mind works. And the thing is that the average speed in which we form thoughts is about 2,000 words per minute. And this is why, as I'm speaking to you right now, your brain can travel whatever it wants because it is much faster than my ability to speak right now. However, if we look at the average typing speed, it is just 40 words per minute. So essentially, when we type, our brain is stuck at a huge traffic jam. And we are unaware of that to some extent because we don't know any other way. But I think that if we look associatively at the task of typing, when we need to write like 3 hours of some professional document, I don't think the adjectives to describe this kind of activity are much positive. It is to some extent mundane, mechanical, and the reason is because we are constantly stuck in this traffic jam and being forced to communicate our thoughts using the keyboard, which is a relatively slow device. And so before talking about what Lightkey is and the features of the product, our vision from day one has been type at the speed of your mind, essentially getting your typing speed closer to the native speed in which we form thoughts. And with every new version, currently I will demonstrate version 29, we are getting one step closer to it. Okay, so let's talk about what Lightkey is as a product. I think one of the core differentiating factors between Lightkey and any other product out there is the fact that it is highly and deeply personalized. You can imagine a person sitting beside you as you are working and he or she are observing how you work. And over time, they will understand what are the logical continuations of your sentences. So at the beginning, they won't know what you're going to write, but over time, they will predict your phrases, and sometimes more than that, until they will be able to complete full sentences because they know you that good. So we take this process and do that digitally within Lightkey. And so this is why Lightkey over time is able to predict up to 18 words, including punctuations, and it works in millions of apps. The next aspect has to do with the way that we type when we are not sure about the accuracy of our content. Sometimes I will show that in a live demo. I'm not a native English speaker, and some words are like nemesis for me. For example, bureaucracy or Mississippi. They're just hard for me to type. And so we wanted to create this experience in which people could type whatever they want without being bothered by whether it is spelled correctly or not, because Lightkey gives them like this confidence as they are doing that, and it does that in real time. And I will show that in a moment as well in the live demo. Lightkey was trained in a large variety of subjects, from technology, whether it is, let's say, AI, cryptocurrency, like technological aspects, many topics in the academia, biology, chemistry, geography, psychology, and healthcare. And so essentially, Lightkey comes prepackaged with knowledge about the world. And whatever topic you are writing on, Lightkey will try and use its pre-trained knowledge, and it will also learn your own individual knowledge graph or knowledge worlds as it will get to know you better. And lastly, and that was one of the most important factors to us when we designed Lightkey, the user is not the product. We do not send your content to the cloud. You can go offline, disconnect from the internet, and get 100% of Lightkey as you are working with it. Okay, questions? I don't see anything in the chat, so let's just dive into the live demo.
Yeah. Just to let you know, Guy, Aaron snuck in on us here. So welcome, Aaron.
Hi, Aaron.
Hey, guys. Good afternoon. Thank you for having us today.
Okay, so let's dive into the right demo, the live demo. What you can see here is a machine that I created, and it has a blank installation of Lightkey. And as you can see, we have zero statistical data. And this is the zero, the blank point, where Lightkey doesn't have any prior knowledge about the user. In fact, when you install Lightkey on your machine, it locally scans your recent documents, emails, presentations. So the actual experience is better because Lightkey actually learns your recent activity and builds its initial knowledge graph based on it. So, but I wanted to take it, to a completely blank point. Well, let's say we have a blank PC with no activity, and we have Lightkey installed. So what I'm going to show you is, as the first example, is how Lightkey adapts itself to the user's writing style. So I will write just a simple sentence, okay? I am trying to, and you can see the prediction is in line with the text, and to accept it, I need to hit the tab key. I'll write my first, hitting tab again, sentence using Lightkey. And as you can see, the first sentence, Lightkey, was fairly conservative in its predictions, and it is because it doesn't have any prior context about my writing style. But let's say that I will write this sentence again. So as you can see, I need to write less characters here to get meaningful predictions. And if I will do that again, I will get even longer sequences. And finally, I will get the entire sentence. So the purpose of this demonstration is not to say that you need to write every sentence 4 times. This is not the point. This is just a way to emulate in a fast-forward way how Lightkey gains confidence about my writing habits. And in real usage, in real life, as we will repeat ourselves in our own unique style and write project names, phone numbers, unique phrases, the way that we write our emails, Lightkey will pick them up. And over time, it will be able to offer more meaningful predictions because it will gain more confidence about our style. Okay, but at some point during the evolution of Lightkey as a product, we were approached by many users who essentially said, it is very nice that Lightkey learns me over time, but what I actually want is to fast forward this process. I have my own knowledge base. Let's say that I am a healthcare professional, and I want to essentially take the bank of sentences that I write during patient analysis, and I want to teach Lightkey these sentences instantly. And so we developed a feature that is called import content. And essentially, if you have, let's say, a folder of files, and we support various formats, and in this example, I have the list of guides for Lightkey for Business. And what I will do is just drag this folder into Lightkey's UI. And I have various import options. I have phrases, which is a bit more conservative. I have sentences, which tries to mimic exact sentences and only vocabulary or individual words. In our case, let's go for full sentences. And as I'm importing that as a new category, we call that prediction categories, Lightkey will reevaluate its prediction model. And essentially, now if I will, let's just go to a random sentence in this document as an example. Let's take bringing this idea from concept to reality, okay? If I will go to my blank document and start writing, so what we will get, bringing this, and once Lightkey has more confidence about the potential continuation, it will offer the full sentence, including punctuations, along the way. And again, it can get up to 18 words, including punctuations. So this is very helpful in the use cases that people want to reference full sentences as they're writing based on some prior knowledge that they created. Okay, so let's talk about corrections. So again, I think during our journey, we start off with predictions as our core focus, but sometimes we realize that we are not always able to express our intent. Again, as I've said, I'm not a native English speaker, and some words are very challenging. So let's go back to what I said about bureaucracy or Mississippi as the nemesis words for me. If I will write, I don't like, and now the traditional way of how we interact with spelling correction tools is that I will just write something, and I will be like a bit, anxious because now like bureaucracy, okay, it's a U, O, R, I'm not sure. And I will write something, get that red line once I will complete writing the word. And then I need to stop. I need to go back and consider what are the options for this word, correct it, and only then I can move forward. And I think that nowadays, more than ever, when our sense of focus is bombarded with notifications and distractions, even this small back and forth dynamic can take us into a different path and just break our line of thought. And so we wanted to create a different experience. We wanted to create something like, if I will write, I don't like, and throw something, and I really don't care, just throw something. Okay, let's just do that again. Okay, you can see it's a different, I don't know how, rubbish to some extent, because and this is a blunt example. And just to show you that Lightkey uses its contextual predictive powers, and it tries, based on its understanding of what part of speech element should be in the sentence, what is sounding similar to this word I've written, and other techniques, it essentially is able to predict that the word I wanted is bureaucracy. But let's say that for some reason, let's say I looked at the keyboard as I'm writing it, and I keep on typing, and let's go for Mississippi, again, with a significant amount of spelling errors. And what you can see is that Lightkey essentially goes with me and offers to correct backwards the word bureaucracy and also Mississippi. And all I need to do, similar to accepting predictions, is just to hit the tab key and make all the errors go away and correct them. And so I think that this forward experience keeps our line of thought and allows us to type in a more relaxed way, because we know that Lightkey will predict us as we type in real time, versus writing something a bit anxiously and then wondering whether it was correct or not. So, and that was essentially a starting point for us, and then we started to improve or capitalize that as we went forward. So then we developed real-time grammar corrections, which is a bit more tricky, because grammar corrections sometimes are only caught in retrospect once you have the whole sentence. So we have worked really hard to capture as many cases as we can in real time. So if I will write something like the word let's, just the word let's by itself, that's okay. But if I will add a verb, then like you realize that I mean the let's with an apostrophe. So, and if I will keep on writing, let's take a break, you can see that as Lightkey analyzes the sentence, it understands that break should be this one and not the car brakes. And all I need to do is just to hit tab and move forward. Another example is a combination of grammar errors and spelling errors. If I will write something like Lightkey and don't instead of doesn't, and collects instead of collect, and then content, sorry, then you can see that I had several, like this is misspelled and these are grammatically incorrect, and everything gets corrected, and I can hit tab and move forward. And we've added to that the ability of Lightkey to understand the keyword layout that we are using in two different ways. First of all, if we write, for example, in some cases, we write and our hands are not positioned correctly on the keyboard. So, for example, if I will hit the key to the left or to the right of what I'm going to write, I will write Lightkey. And instead of hitting the L key, I will use the K, which is adjacent to L. And instead of the I will use U, because it's adjacent to the left of I. And I will keep on making these positional errors on the keyboard. And you can see that Lightkey computes the distance between these keys and my specific keyboard layout. And it realizes that my best intent was to write Lightkey, even if I got 100% of the keystrokes incorrect. So that's another useful feature for typos correction. And lastly, we realized that English has two forms, the UK and US. And by the way, as a person from Israel, I realized that what I've actually done personally is just a mixture of both forms, depending on what movies I watched. Because again, it's not my native language. So if I saw a very good UK-based movie, I use the word learned a lot versus a good US movie and used other words. So essentially, we wanted, and this is my personal case, but of course, in a more general form, we wanted to look at the specific keyboard layout. And here I have English, US. So if I will write UK words. So for example, if I will write my favorite color in this way, you can see the Lightkey aligns the words to the US form. And if I will write this sentence using a UK-based keyboard, it will correct me to the UK form. So again, it is sensitive to the keyboard layout as well when it is taking into account what kind of real-time corrections it should offer. Okay, so I think this is pretty much it. Just some other small points that I've wanted to add. First of all, for students, I think it's a useful feature. Sometimes we need to do some calculations inline. So again, I think that if you go to the Calc app on your Windows machine or on your phone, it is yet another tiny excuse to even further go out of that context and just scroll into some social media for half an hour without any good explanation or reason to it in retrospect. But we wanted to keep you focused on your work, even if you're doing computation. So if I will write, it doesn't matter what I will write here. The result is, and I will write something like a mathematical computation and hit the equal sign, I will get the result. So again, it is a pretty useful feature. And we said, like, why not if you're, we can predict mathematical expressions as well. So that's another useful feature. And just as a general saying, when you write with Lightkey, if you notice, Lightkey, once you hit the tab key, it will add a space. So if I will write, let's say this is an example, so you can see that we have, this is trying to write, let's go to our first example. Okay, I'm trying to write my first sentence using Lightkey. And if now I want to add punctuation, I want to end that with a period after the sentence, but I hit the tab key and I have a sentence, I have a space here. So instead of hitting the backspace, what we actually do is when you accept a prediction and use a punctuation, Lightkey will automatically delete the redundant space for you. So that essentially, again, create this forward writing experience versus the alternatives of just going back and forth, even for a small space deletion. Okay, so I think that this pretty much covers the basics of what Lightkey is. We do have some more advanced features, but I think that for this demonstration purposes, it is good. I think that's a good point to pause if you have questions before I will dive into the UI of Lightkey a little bit. So any questions?
Yes, just there's one in the chat so far. I just encourage everybody to add in their questions and their thoughts into the chat, or raise your hand or unmute your microphone, and we'll be able to get you on by voice. John is asking about phonetic spellings, like physics spelled F-I-Z-Z-I-X instead of P-H-Y-S-I-C-S. It's Friday. I can't spell either, John.
Right, it's okay. So we do have phonetic as a data point when we consider different predictions, but actually, when we did a deep investigation into this, so you have a very large crossover of cases. Sometimes you may write this example, but the keyboard, you just unintentionally wrote something that, based on your keyboard layout, is not necessarily the phonetic intent, but rather something else. So we take that as a consideration, but I can't guarantee, like, if you are trying to write like the classic elephant, or if you said like physics, that Lightkey will essentially take the phonetic argument as the strongest one, because again, it needs to balance different models and see what is best matching your intent. And I think that also it is very, very contextual. So just to give you an example, if I will write something like it means and I will add the U here, you can see the world here is corrected to O. And if I will write something like it would, and do the same mistake, it will correct based on the same incorrect word, it will correct me to would. So again, Lightkey is very contextual in its decision making. So I know that there is like phonetic features to some softwares, so it's not necessarily the same. Hope that it answers the question.
Okay, perfect. And there was another example. Jim has used the example of once, W-O-N-C instead of O-N-C-E. So that would follow along the same there. So appreciate that answer, Guy. And I can feel your pain as you're trying to come up with examples and think these things on the spot. There's no way I could even come close to doing that. So the next question that I've got here in the chat was from Maris, asking about using speech to text at the same time, so using some dictation.
Great question. Actually, Lightkey is a great companion to speech-to-text software, let's say Dragon as a reference. And essentially, we also did a thorough investigation on the dynamics of working with both software. So again, from a technical standpoint, it works perfectly well. Lightkey actually doesn't care what originated the input that was written on the screen, as long as you're switching to the keyboard and typing something, it will offer predictions. So it also works with, let's say, on-screen keyboards, other physical appliances, as long as they are generating keystrokes in some form. And just to, I think, just take it a little bit deeper, we noticed that there is a major difference between dictation and content creation. So dictation is very good for purposes in which we have a very clear sense of what we want to write. And so if I have like something, fully ready, made in my mind, I can just spit it out to the screen using speech-to-text software. But then if I want to articulate it or edit it, I think that it becomes a little bit more, cumbersome to some extent. You can imagine yourself dictating to speech-to-text software, like go back to words, replace this word by this word, versus just doing that in the keyboard and using Lightkey along the process. So again, I think they are very good companions to one another. And and dictation is a bit different from the process of thinking and creating the content in real time.
Okay, and Jim was asking if you want to use the tab key as a tab key instead of getting the prediction, can you override that?
Yeah, so we have a couple of options for that. First of all, if you're not getting any prediction and you hit the tab key, it is the same tab key. And if for some reason, while you're getting a prediction in, at this moment, and you don't want to accept it, you can hit escape and then use the tab key as the regular tab key. But we took it one step further, and in tables, you may want to navigate using tab key. So we have an extra setting that says that you can block tab key in tables. So again, we have that, I think, pretty much figured out in the settings. And what we actually saw, and that was interesting for us along the journey, was that people wanted it. They've gotten so used to this tab key. So sometimes they just want the opposite. They say, like, this is, and I write something, and Lightkey doesn't offer anything. And so I want Lightkey, like, hit me with what you got. And the usage of tab key was so like wired, because this is essentially a different typing experience. So if I will write something and just hit the tab key, Lightkey will give me the best, its best guess. So just SUG will give me that. If I will use that, so again, Lightkey figured that out already. But if I didn't get any prediction by using the tab key, again, Lightkey will just bring me whatever prediction it has. So again, you can use tab key for both purposes: to ask Lightkey to wishfully say whatever it has, its best guess, or to hit escape and use it normally as you would in other cases.
Okay, and Jim is curious if you can add a custom word list into the program, and I think you had covered that, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes, so you can go to the prediction profile tab from Lightkey's UI. It runs on the tray, as you can see here. And you can just create a new category and import either a file or folder, and just select your settings. For some cases, you want just the vocabulary. Some cases, you want phrases. It really depends on your preference. So this is the way to go.
Okay. All right. And Clark is wondering if it works with custom words that are added into Microsoft's Word or Microsoft Word's dictionary.
Unfortunately not, because Lightkey works in a lot of apps, and we wanted to keep word integration as lightweight as possible due to technical reasons. But essentially, you need to to explicitly import your own vocabulary as you work with the software.
Okay, and we've got a few questions in the chat here about plans and platforms and what it works in, what programs it works in, and devices it works on. We'll get to those in a few moments.
Sure.
Just want to clear up some of the questions that aren't surrounding that. Alice is asking whether you've worked with screen reading software like NVDA or JAWS, and do the predictions announce to those screen reader users?
Okay, so I think that the answer is yes, and I think that's a great segue. And then we can address more questions, but I think it's a natural progression in this case to talk about Lightkey's accessibility settings. So essentially, in the website, you would find Lightkey Pro Edition and the Business Edition, but we also have a special edition called Pro AT for, of course, assistive technology. And when you install this version, what you will get, and please just for a moment ignore this screen, I will get back into it. You get this wizard that once you hit the next in the installation, you land on this screen, and it will ask you a sequence of questions. So just first one is just to get using the tab key as the recommended one out of the way. But if you want, you can add more keys to accept predictions. And once you've done that, you have a sequence of yes and no questions that target different conditions. And all this process, including the installation itself, is supported by JAWS, NVDA, Windows Narrator, or other screen reader software. Essentially, based on the answers, and I want to go through these options here, based on these answers, you will get an optimized experience. So for in this question, what we actually target is color blindness. So if I will answer that with a yes, Lightkey will change its prediction visuals or prediction color on the screen to the most common condition of color blindness, because we have there are several types of color blindness. In this question, we target either partial sight or complete blindness. So let's, for the sake of example, answer everything with a yes. This is to target physical typing difficulty, which means that essentially Lightkey shifts its balance between accuracy and the amount of keystrokes it tries to save towards saving more keystrokes at a big cost of accuracy, because in the understanding of that the user with the physical typing difficulty will invest more energy producing keystrokes rather than considering predictions on the screen. Okay, so this is this setting. And lastly, for dyslexia, Lightkey is more conservative and its ability to learn words that are not in its built-in vocabulary. Because again, naturally, for every person, we have our own unique vocabulary of words, expressions, project names, whatever it will be. So in this mode, it will be more conservative, assuming that in some instances, the user may write that incorrectly when using Lightkey. And finally, we can review anything. And I just forgot to say that for visual impairment, we have read aloud for predictions and real-time corrections as well. So just for the sake, and everything is screen reader friendly, as well as the dashboard of Lightkey and this screen as well. But we are working to add more elements to the UI to be compatible with screen readers. Because to be honest, we didn't think about it as we started developing the software. That was added later on as we was connecting with the world of assistive technology in the context of Lightkey. Okay, so just to round this up, I hope that you will hear that as I will type something, you can see that the prediction color is changed. So let me just avoid like very long sentences for a moment and turn off the category we created. So let's just write something.
This is.
So you can hear that. I hope that you can hear the prediction out loud.
Is. Example of.
Okay, and you can see that the visuals have changed. This is a high contrast theme that targets the most types of color blindness. And if I will do like spelling errors, okay,
example.
You can hear them in a female voice just to make a differentiation between predictions and corrections in a more intuitive sense. And yeah, so I think that is pretty much covers it. And if I will go to accessibility settings, just as you can see, we can again control the typing difficulties or physical difficulties toggle and dyslexia option as well. We can choose different prediction colors again that target, let's say, a bit more rare color blindness conditions. And we can control which voices are we using for each language, and the voice speed, which we also added because as we actually sat down with blind people and saw their work in real time, we realized that they love to increase the voice speed because they are very, very, very good at hearing voice and act on it. So you can control that as well. And for each language that Lightkey supports, you can just customize that as well. Okay, so that was a relatively long answer, but to the screen reader question, but hopefully that was in the context of understanding accessibility settings as well. So any other questions before just talking a little bit about Lightkey's UI?
Yeah, thanks for that extended answer there, Guy, because I know that that existed in the program, and I was hoping that you'd get to it. Thought that that would be also, as you said, a good segue into being able to show us some of those other accessibility settings. And I was just going to pull a question out of the chat here on behalf of Jim, who has just raised his hand to ask a question. So we'll ask the one in the chat. Jim wants to know if it works with programming code, and then by all means, Jim, unmute and go ahead.
Hi, thanks. Can you hear me? Yeah, it looks like you can. So this is a different question. So if you want to just answer, does it work? Will it assist with programming code?
That's a great question. And I think that there is a very deep difference between coding, which is very much structured and defined, and free text creation, which is unstructured to most extent, and it is very broad in its spectrum, especially if you consider professional topics. My personal background as a software engineer, I very much love, let's say ReSharper as like prediction tool for coding, and now we have Copilot. So again, Lightkey is not for coding. It is tailored for content creation, which is in its free form using like when we write our text. So
Cool, good answer. So I downloaded it, installed it while you were giving the demo, and I made a couple errors. And now when I type those errors, it actually gives me the wrong words. So example, I spelled elephant with an F, but I also mixed it with elegant. And now when I type elephant with an F, it predicts elegant. So is there a way to fix that?
yeah, so actually Lightkey has this inherent tension or challenge between adapting itself to your vocabulary on one hand and avoiding learning mistaken words. So if you are encountering this case, which you now said, what you can do, let's just try and emulate that. This is
An example.
Oh, let's just turn off the voice so it will not interrupt us and go back to the default theme. And actually, because I have dyslexia turned on, it will not work because in dyslexia it is more conservative. And in your case, it wouldn't work because Lightkey will want you essentially to be more consistent and writing this incorrect word multiple times. But let's say that in the regular mode, let's try and write elephant. And if I will write this again, we will get this incorrect word. So in this case, what you can do is simply just right-click on the incorrect word and ask Lightkey to remove that from your vocabulary. And once you will do that, Lightkey will update its prediction model, remove any instance of this word from it, and it won't give you this word as a prediction. You can see it's not trying to give me that as a prediction. So again, but if you have, and again, this is the benefit of the Pro AT edition, if you think that there is a tendency for it to work, if you turn the dyslexia mode on, it won't happen because Lightkey will be much more conservative in its adaptiveness to your vocabulary.
Great answer. You've done a lot of work. Thanks very much.
Sure. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. And you can count on our audience members, Guy, for attempting to break your software wherever possible. So, Jim, thanks for putting it through that test. And I just learned something. I always thought elephant was spelled with an F. Sorry. Bad joke for a Friday. There's one other question that I want to get to out of the chat here for us, Guy, and then I know you want to take us through a few more parts of the interface, and
Sure.
Then we've got a lot of questions that have come in various forms about the plans and how does it work, where does it work, what does it work with, and all that. So I'm going to put Lake's question out there, and then I'm going to leave it up to you, Guy, whether you want to answer those other questions. Or if you want to go through the rest of the interface and come back to the other questions. So Lake is asking if Lightkey has a way to help identify plagiarism if it suggests sentence taken from analyzed documents and the user accepts them without changing them.
That's a great question. So I think that our philosophy is to capture our specific unique domain, which is personalized predictions and real-time corrections, and really try and be good in it, versus trying to expand to other domains and be fine. And so we do not try and detect plagiarism. We do, however, when you import content, you can import them as phrases, which essentially reduces significantly the possibility of plagiarism. So that would be my best advice here. Other than that, Lightkey learns your own unique style, so it won't offer sentences out of the blue. It will only do so if you had a very good tendency of using them and writing them. So hopefully, inherently, that will also, to some extent, avoid plagiarism, unless copying yourself to some extent counts as plagiarism. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Guy. And I lied a little. I just found half of a question that doesn't relate to the plans and such from Colin. Colin is curious if this is working inside the word processor like an extension, or is it a full program running beside it?
That's actually a great question, and it was a deep design challenge for us as well. So, and again, it's a bit technical, the answer, but Lightkey is an extension using like an add-in of Microsoft. You can see that here, using Microsoft's API and best practices. But actually, when you get this, when you get a prediction, the prediction is not inside Microsoft Word. It's actually a floating window that is positioned exactly after the caret, the blinking line here. And so if, let's say, you crashed for some reason, Word crashed or something, the prediction is not a part of the document. It's just a floating piece of text. When you hit tab, it is being injected using Microsoft API into the document. So, but to that extent, Lightkey is again an add-in, but the prediction is not. So hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, perfect. All right, so and I encourage people to keep putting their questions and comments and thoughts into the chat or raising their hand so we can bring you on by voice. But at this point, everything else that's in the chat, Guy, revolves around the plans and what does this work with, what platforms does it work on, and that. So I'll let you proceed with that, or taking us further through the interface.
So let's go with the questions. So let's talk about platforms and apps. So let me just scroll and go back to the presentation. So essentially, Lightkey is a Windows software at the moment. Again, there are technical aspects to why it's only supported on Windows at the moment, but it is a Windows software. It's supporting Microsoft Office 2010 onwards, including 2021 or 365. And it supports every Chromium-based browser, which essentially means Chrome, Edge. And if you are a fan of a more, let's say, exotic browser that is based on that open source, it will work as well. And in the browser, it works with any kind of rich content field, with one exception that we are working on, which is Google Docs. I won't get into the technical reason, but it's a bit more challenging due to their inherent architecture, but we're working on it. So again, if you're writing emails, working with collaboration apps, chatting online, and it's not just a list here. This is just a very partial list because Lightkey generically integrates itself with any rich text. And again, it's a rich text. If you're writing your email subject line, it won't predict it because it's not considered as a rich text. Of course, if you're writing sensitive things, if you are typing your passwords, Lightkey is not integrated with that. It's not connecting with these fields whatsoever. Only if these fields are defined as rich text by the app maker, and there are pretty much clear standards into what considers to be a rich text field. And I think that lastly, what we have is this profile that goes along with us, regardless of what, let's say, big tech company we use. So for example, I may use Microsoft Office, which is a Microsoft product, then and to write a document, and then write an email about it using Gmail, which is a Google product, and then chat about it using a WhatsApp, which is a Facebook or Meta product. And our prediction profile and the phrases and sentences that Lightkey learned about us will travel with us across all the apps we're using. So again, I think that over time, it's creating this consistent, personalized experience versus having some nice generic predictions on Word, some generic predictions when we use Smart Compose and Gmail, etc. So I think that's also an interesting point to make about the way that Lightkey supports various apps. And in terms of plans, so sorry, that was the trigger for me to go to the live demo. Instead of plans, so essentially what we have is we have individual license for the Pro Edition, and if you go to our website, you will find like that these are the prices for the Pro Edition. We have the Pro AT Edition. If you're interested in that, please contact us. So it's a bit higher price due to the unique features that we have added. And this license is essentially either a file with an activation code in the annual case or a serial number in the lifetime case. For the site license, again, we have these ranges, and it depends on the number of devices you want, the type of institution, and usually we sell it annually, but we are flexible to multiple years, or in some cases even lifetime, but it's very, very rare one. So again, contact us if you are interested in that. And lastly, we have business licenses, both for the standard version of Lightkey for Business and AT edition for that as well, which is on-premise and activated on-premise. And it is, again, the pricing is very much dynamic depending on the number of devices. So hopefully it made a little bit more, it made things a little bit more clear in terms of plans.
There was a couple questions in addition that were in the chat to take the pricing information a little further, Guy. One is, I apologize, is about the free plan compared to the Pro plan, where the free plan says that it saves you up to 1,000 keystrokes per month, and the Pro has unlimited keystrokes. And Clark was curious if you could explain the limit in the free version and how it works, how those saved keystrokes are calculated.
Sure. So when we started Lightkey in the classic model of 30-day trial. And if you download Lightkey's Pro Edition, you will get all the features, unlimited predictions for 1 month. So that is like what our initial point was. But we realized that because typing is such a deeply rooted habit, for some users, it takes time to actually extract a lot of value from Lightkey because they need to change their habit. It's a very ancient one, at least for most of us. And we went and developed the free edition as a means to say, if you saved little keystrokes in the first month, or let's say in the first 2 months using Lightkey, then Lightkey will keep on working. And you will hit the barrier of 1,000 keystrokes, 1,000 predicted keystrokes. And at that point, you probably realize that you get enough value to go to a paid plan. So the rationale here is that in the free plan, you have unlimited time. You can use Lightkey for unlimited time span, but for each month, you get 1,000 keystrokes. And just as a side note, if you invite friends, you will get more monthly quota. You can get, I think, up to 4,000 keystrokes, but just as a quick side note. But again, Lightkey will essentially almost all the features would work, except for some advanced statistical knowledge or statistical data and the import content. These are only unique to the Pro, but in terms of predictions, you can get up to 18 words. It works on all the apps, etc. But when you hit the 1,000 keystroke ceiling, Lightkey will stop working until the next month, and that will essentially reset the count to 0. So that's, I think, hopefully answers the question.
Just to clarify, is that a month from when you install it, or a month based on the calendar month?
Calendar month. So if you install it on the, let's say on this day, you will get in a week the reset, the quota reset.
Okay, perfect. Clark was also curious if it works in Firefox.
Unfortunately not. Apologies.
All right. Okay. And we've got the inevitable question of, does this work on Apple products and phones?
No, not at the moment.
And I'm going to ask the question that now is on everybody's mind is regarding the Apple products, specifically laptops or desktops, not phones, but laptops, desktops. You say not yet.
No, not yet. We do
Can you-
have that in our roadmap. I cannot commit to a certain time frame, but not at the moment.
Or it is coming. Can you at least commit to that?
Yeah, we will do our best to make it, coming soon. But again, it has its challenges. Just to give you a little bit more details around it, we worked really hard to shrink Lightkey's computation power into something that is highly optimized on Windows operating system, and Lightkey's responsiveness time is under 10 milliseconds. So it's very much intertwined with the way that operating system Windows OS designed is. So yeah, so we have challenges. So yeah.
I apologize for trying to pin you down on that, guy, but I know it's a question on a lot of our minds that it's with it being a Windows only product is will it be for Apple? And we would love to know an exact date, but the will it be for Apple you're saying is as that those are your plans, is to have it in available for the Apple products. So that's good news. We'll go with that. And I know that Maris has his hand up. I just want to, before we bring Maris on by voice, Anne had put a question into the chat, and I'm just wondering if Anne can either clarify that question a little bit about working with Microsoft Prediction, or maybe if Anne, after Maris, if Anne can come on by voice. So Maris, go ahead.
So I see there's a site license for education. So I'm anticipating that means a student would be using it.
Yeah.
So let's say they use it for 1 year or 2 years, and then they leave the institution. Do they get, if they wanted it on their own somewhere else, does it port over? Like if so they're at the site license education as a student, 1 year, 2 years, then they leave and they go, I want this as an individual license for myself. Does all the words that they have in there come along with them?
Yeah, the answer is yes.
Well, they will need to do something. It doesn't go automatically. They can back up their prediction profile, and then they can restore it onto their personal machine somewhere else.
If they're using the same machine, they can just activate their individual license on top of the site license. So it's not a problem. If they are switching machines, as Eran said, they need to back up their prediction profile and restore it onto their next machine.
So then if I can add another one, can they use it at home and at work?
Yes, because we comply with very strict privacy policies. There is no cloud sync between them. So they can essentially back up and restore their profiles, or just let it naturally grow in both machines. But if they want, they can just back up and restore the profiles across machines. They're using that less frequently, let's say.
So with that, just to clarify a point that Maris just raised there, is the program itself, it's licensed per user then versus per machine?
It's licensed per machine, actually. So when we talk about, as you can see in the site license, it's depending on the number of devices, also in the business license, and not the number of users. But if you activate a license on a specific machine, and you can, if you uninstall Lightkey and reinstall it on a different machine using the same license, it will migrate automatically. And we also, in our support, we can do that on our end as well. If, let's say, your machine burned and crashed or something. So yeah, so you can migrate your license, and that hopefully answers the question.
Okay. but simultaneously, at the same time, you can't, as Maris was suggesting, a student to be using it at home and at a work or a school computer. They can't use the same license.
It accounts for 2 activations in the terms of the site license.
Okay, perfect. And I was going to highlight a point that Aaron had brought out there when he interjected about the privacy of this program and the fact that with no cloud sync, and Clark has just put into the chat the thing stating the privacy consideration is wonderful in this current day and age, and he along with, I think, a lot of us, we thank you for that. It obviously it doesn't allow some other features to be able to be used on multiple devices, but it certainly allows for the privacy and everything to be locally on the computer. So and we've got a question in, sorry, Anne, did you want to come on by voice and elaborate on your question about working with Microsoft Prediction? Maybe Anne has left the meeting. So the question as it was posed in the chat was, does it work with Microsoft Prediction or? And so I'm not sure what is behind that question. I don't know. Do you have any information that you could share there, Guy?
Yeah. So essentially in Office 365, you do have built-in predictions for Word and Outlook in Microsoft Office. And I think the question is whether it can work with it. So essentially, when Lightkey is installed, it is turning off Office 365 predictions to avoid conflicts and getting situations where Office has one prediction and Lightkey has another prediction. And when you uninstall Lightkey, it will revert back to your original settings. But our recommendation, because again, these, like if you look at Google Docs or if you look at Microsoft Prediction Model, they essentially target very general knowledge-based expressions, and they're not trying to be personalized to your writing style. And that is the prediction aspect. If you look at real-time corrections, they do not offer real-time corrections, as I've shown. And so I think that there is a very different type of experience working with these general or generic predictions versus the personalized and real-time corrections that Lightkey can offer. And this is why Lightkey turns it off, just to avoid conflict and just to give the user a coherent experience. So yeah, but if I will just expand this question, if you are working with Smart Compose, I think that to a large extent, you can keep Lightkey and Smart Compose combined. You can turn it off if you want to be on the safe side, but for the most part, it will work fine because of the way that Lightkey is integrated into Smart Compose in its browser extension. So you can essentially benefit from both worlds if you want. So hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, so speaking of benefiting from both worlds, Guy, as you were providing that answer, it made me wonder, as we discussed earlier, Clark's question about the free version and the 1,000 keystrokes, and you mentioned that at the end of the 1,000 keystrokes, it basically it stops, the Lightkey stops working until the next month or till you upgrade. So if installing Lightkey turns off some features in Microsoft Word, as you were just explaining, when you reach that 1,000 keystrokes, does it turn back on automatically?
So the answer is no. But again, I think that the purpose of the free edition is for you to reach a point in which when you hit this limit, you will get to the conclusion where you just want to predict more keystrokes. So either go for a pay plan, or I think it's a bit frustrating to have like this intelligent writing experience and then have it turned off. So we don't try and like switch on and off Word settings. We really want you to have this experience with Lightkey and hopefully commit to it in one of the paid plans. But it's an interesting point to take thinking forward.
Okay, not that I'm trying to find ways to work around the system. I was just curious if I was coming at it more from a perspective of if a student is trying it out and they exceed the 1,000 keystrokes and they are not taking on a paid license and they're counting on those other tools, that it's something that unless they deactivate at Lightkey. So it'd be just something for us working with students that we'd have to be aware of to be able to kind of, I guess you'd say, go back here or go in and manually help them with manage that. So we all know that sometimes software stays on the computer well after we've tried it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, we've got 2 questions left here. Yes, Jim's just making a comment, thinking or mentioning that it's important to return a user's PC to the way it was before they tried your tool. I think Jim's underlying the comment that you made there, Guy, of taking that concern forward in some of your planning there. Plus, it's a nice reminder, Jim, for us as assistive technologists to make sure that we don't change anything without the students being aware in that. So yeah, there's 2 other questions that I want to get to, and they both take us kind of back to in directions that we've already talked about. So RH is asking, what about using Lightkey on an MS Office Online or Chrome/Edge browser, but running on a Mac?
So unfortunately, Lightkey is very much connected and optimized to the host operating system. So again, if you even just try to take the Chrome extension and install it on a Mac, it won't work because it relies on Lightkey's internal services that are Windows services. So the answer is no.
Okay. And we're going back to licensing. John Lee is asking for clarification on purchasing licenses that we could loan to students to borrow.
Please contact us by email. I don't have like the strict or direct answer to answer at the moment.
Okay, I think that was, and feel free to unmute, John, if you'd like to come on by voice to add to this. I think that was in clarification of the loaning between multiple computers and such. So, okay. All right, and John is just in the chat, said, okay, thanks. So that's perfect. All right, so those were all the questions that were in the chat. So just kind of ask people to continue putting their thoughts and their questions in the chat, or raise their hand or unmute their microphone if anybody's wanting to come on by voice and ask a question of Guy or Aaron. Maris is just... Sometimes it takes a second when the comments pop up on the screen, and if I'm not directly in the chat, and it just took me a second. Maris was just thanking us for the presentation. So the Guy, I know that we kind of deviated a little bit from your presentation, and I think you had some other items that you might have wanted to go back through into the user interface, or had you made it through all of those through your demonstration?
Sure. So I will just go over a little bit about the UI and Lightkey's options very briefly, and we can, that was all my objectives. But again, I thank you for all the questions. I love it. So let's just go back and see Lightkey's dashboard. So as you can see, I've just used Microsoft Word. You can see how much time, and again, it's a very, for the demo session, but over time, we will have a little bit more insight about what apps we are using and how much time on a daily basis. Here we have the time that was saved by Lightkey, and it is evaluated by our typing pace, so the amount of words per minute that we write, versus the amount of keystrokes that Lightkey successfully predicted. And by combining these, we can evaluate how much time was saved, which is fairly accurate. It's like sub-second accuracy. And I think that originally for us, we really were focused on saving time as the leading, let's say, selling point. But quickly we realized that the psychological effect of having this essentially companion or friend that learns from you, grows with you over time, and correct your mistakes, especially if you are using, like, let's say, a second language. I know that for many people with dyslexia, it's a very significant feature because it allows them to stay focused in real time and correct their mistakes as they are writing their content. So the psychological impact is much more powerful than the time saved, even though in our relatively short session, we saved a couple of minutes. So I think that was an interesting insight for us as well. I think that's an interesting setting as well. So for statistically speaking, about 40% of us look at the keyboard to some extent as we type our content. So we developed a feature called Sound Assistance, which is different from the read aloud, because read aloud would essentially read everything. Sound Assistance is all about trying to see whenever you are just ignoring predictions appearing on the screen and you have a meaningful one, Lightkey will play a subtle sound. So if I'm just ignoring predictions appearing on the screen, I think I have perhaps a technical problem here. So what you will hear is this sound. And that will occur whenever I have a high impact prediction or a long prediction, and I'm just steering away from Lightkey. I think that the actual thing is that I've accepted a lot of predictions from Lightkey. So it's still like assuming that I am visually still focused on the screen. But if I will ignore it enough time, it will say, hey, it seems like you are behaving as if you are looking at the keyboard and not on the screen, because they were very good predictions that matches your input that you kept on typing manually that you didn't accept it or didn't accept. So this is this feature. And everything here is clickable. So if I would click on minutes saved, it will take me to my productivity metrics, and I can cross it with specific timeframes, languages, and apps. So this is this screen, and I can also export that to a CSV formatted file. In the prediction profile, as you see in the categories, I can create a new category and import my content. These areas here are just ways to give a little bit more hints to Lightkey of what topics are we using, but actually Lightkey can infer them automatically. So you don't have to use that. And in fact, I think that is fairly just to be backward compatible because Lightkey again does that in real time. In languages, Lightkey picks up the languages based on my keyboard, based on my Windows languages. So again, I have Hebrew and English here, but depending on what languages, if I will add French using like the Windows settings, it will be automatically added. So let's just go ahead and do that. And just add the French layout here. And I will go back to Lightkey. You can see it automatically was added here as a prediction language. And Lightkey will automatically download missing language packages if it's required to do so. And here you can see the full list of languages that you can use Lightkey with. So again, if you just want to use a specific language, you just click on it. It will take you to Windows language settings, and you can just add that language as well. Finally, in preferences, so there are many preferences. You can control which apps you want to use Lightkey with just by clicking on and off. Here it will give you a feedback about what if you have the Chrome or Edge extension installed. So for example, in Microsoft Edge, I don't have the extension installed. So if I will click on it, it will actually open Lightkey's Chrome extension in Edge. So I can just allow extensions from other stores and add that to my Edge browser automatically. And you can see that now it says that the extension is installed. Lightkey Anywhere is, just very briefly, is a nice feature that you can invite Lightkey into text fields. For example, if I will I will enable that and open just Microsoft Excel, just as an example. But it works with any square field. Let's say if you are working with Microsoft Teams, the desktop app, not the web-based version, which is supported by Lightkey in its browser extension. So if I want to invite Lightkey to some text field on some software on my PC, and I activate Lightkey Anywhere, all I need to do is to hit or hold the Alt key and click on the field. And you can see that now Lightkey positioned itself on top of my text box. And if I will just write something, and hit Enter, it will just be inserted into the text field. So again, in some instances, I think usually for chat, it is fairly useful. Here we can control all the inner settings of Lightkey's prediction engine. So again, I touched a lot of it. So I will just want to show you that you can fine tune if you want it here. You can choose what prediction key you're using with Lightkey. And here, yeah, so I think that's pretty much the most important one. And here you have the sound assistant that you can play with that here as well. And here you can back up and restore your prediction profile, which is, I think, the most useful features in this screen. And here you can actually, if you have, like, if you want to conserve energy and you have like a low battery in your laptop, you can go for energy saver or high performance. On the other hand, Lightkey will utilize more system resources to give a little bit more better predictions. But I think balance is, in 99% of the cases, is the way to go. Just a small point about this one. So Lightkey sends numerical-based data out of the box, not the content, as I've said before. So if you turn this off, essentially, Lightkey has 0 upload. But again, if it's turned on, you get 100% of Lightkey's functionality. So it doesn't have to do with the functionality. It essentially communicate with us things like, if in Gmail you have 70% accuracy using Lightkey in Spanish, then it says to us that we want to invest more resources to improve the accuracy of Lightkey in Spanish. So again, it's numerical based, but it's up to you. If you want, you can turn it off as well. And finally, in the license tab, you can activate Lightkey using a serial key, either for lifetime or site licenses, or an annual license if you want to activate Lightkey using a 1-year license that you purchased. So I think that this is pretty much it for the UI and for the presentation itself. So again, if you have any other questions, feel free to ask them. And thank you very much, both Doug, for the invitation to present to this community. And thank you, everyone, for attending today.
Great, Guy. I appreciate that you taking us through those last few steps there. Some interesting additional points came out there. And as has been mentioned by a number of people, is the amount of work that's gone into Lightkey is quite evident, and the amount of thought and caring that's into the detail is fantastic. We've got a few questions that have come in here while you were going through that, and I just want to remind everybody as a last opportunity either to raise your hand, unmute your microphone, or use the chat if you'd like to get in just before we wrap up today. Jim has a question about buying a lifetime license, whether or not you'll get updates.
So for all license types, we provide lifetime updates, upgrades, no like catches here. So yes, the answer is yes.
Okay, perfect. And Jim has found somewhere where Lightkey doesn't work that he would like to add to your list of things to develop, and that is OneNote. It's a Microsoft product. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Jim, for that. We want to have Lightkey integrated with OneNote, and unfortunately, due to technical reasons, Microsoft doesn't allow us to create this add-in to Outlook as we have for Word, PowerPoint, and Outlook. But if you are working with OneNote online, so like using an online version of OneNote, which is identical in terms of its UI, you will get Lightkey, Lightkey's native predictions in there. So hopefully that will help.
Perfect. All right. So there is some hope there for you, Jim. I just have to move over to the web version of OneNote. And our resident language, our resident linguistics, that's the extent of my fancy words. Our resident linguistics expert, Wink, has put into the chat regarding Hebrew. When you switch to Hebrew, does Lightkey switch directions to right to left? And does it automatically insert the vowels? Alternatively, does it correctly insert accent marks in other languages?
So yes, if you switch to Hebrew, Lightkey will give you the prediction experience right to left. And by the way, it works in Arabic, Farsi, or other right to left languages. In terms of accented characters, it's a bit of a challenge in terms of tailoring it to each language. And even in Hebrew, where for some words it's we are not completely in agreement of what kind of accents we need to use. So we currently put that to the side. But in terms of the experience, you will get the same fluent experience from right to left as well.
Perfect. Any clarifications? I was just going to ask Wink, any clarifications? And Wink raised her hand. So go ahead, Wink.
Well, forgive me if I make mistakes in what I say about Hebrew, because my knowledge of Hebrew is much less than yours. Most people don't know that Hebrew is typically written without vowels at all.
Exactly.
And so putting vowels in is only for the benefit of people who are going to read it aloud, not necessarily for people who are fluent in the language, because you know where the vowel, you as the speaker, reader, know where the vowels belong, right?
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily true. So inserting the vowels, I guess it would depend on who your audience was as to whether or not they would be necessary, right?
Yes, and actually the way that Lightkey works inherently is that it counts voweled words, like words if they're like with vowels in it, as different entities versus words without vowels, because again, it has like special treatment where it said, if you choose to put vowels into this word, it will take it into account in a different way. So again, because of its contextual contextualization processes. So hopefully that answers the question a little bit.
It does. My question about other languages, and I'm just making a supposition, that if you have in your repository of words and phrases and so on your computer, if you have the words in there that are spelled correctly with the correct accent marks, then it will search for the words with the correct accent marks. Am I right?
Yes, but the pre-trained vocabulary of Lightkey is, again, for Hebrew. For other languages, it's a different case, is the words without the accents, essentially.
Yeah, but Lightkey can learn those accent marks.
Well, that's what I was hoping, but thank you.
Yeah, it can learn them and will then suggest them.
Perfect. Thanks for
But
that.
thanks for that. I mean, it's the first time I'm presenting in English and I get a question about Hebrew. So well done.
All we need to do is bring a couple of the young university students on here, Guy, and just ask them how they text, because they do it without vowels.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you for that, Wink. And I'm not seeing any unmuted microphones, raised hands. or anything else in the chat other than some thanks for this wonderful presentation. So we will kind of be wrapping it up here. It's coming close to 10, well, it is 10:30 for you, Guy, there in Israel. So I'm sure that you're wanting to definitely get to bed, and I appreciate you staying with us this late and making the arrangements to be able to present for us today. This has been fantastic. And just, I know that Aaron is part of your team at Lightkey and came into the meeting a little late there. Wanted to make sure that if Aaron had anything to add, don't want to leave you out, Aaron.
No, that's perfectly fine. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So again, Guy, Aaron, this has been fantastic. Again, I have to reiterate that the amount of detail and thought that's gone into developing Lightkey, it's quite impressive, and the details that you've taken into consideration, the roadmap that you've got ahead, obviously. There's other things on that roadmap in addition to hopefully getting this working on the Apple products. And we look forward as assistive technologists to being able to see what comes in the future for this program. And Wink has just asked in the chat here about Wink's is a professor in the graduate courses for assistive tech, and plans to include your software in as a resource. And just wondering if there are any online demos that can be accessed.
So we have a very broad range of very short videos on our YouTube channel. We also have some long ones, which are more comprehensive. But I think that hopefully you can use this video as well, because as to my understanding, it will go into Doug's YouTube channel. So you can reference that if you want as well. But if you want, contact us and we can send you a very comprehensive list of demos depending on your preference and needs. So yeah.
Absolutely perfect. Thank you for clarifying that, Guy. And yes, the replay will be posted on the past events page as well as in the YouTube channel. And contact information will also be part of the resources there with the replay. So again, Guy, this Lightkey, a comment just came in about it being a cool product name too. And yes, nice combination of words there, play on words as well. So it's fantastic. There's lots of opportunity for Lightkey to support those with disabilities, various types of disabilities that we support in our work. So interested and intrigued to see how it plays out with some of our people in the profession and using it with those that they support. So in the future, I really do encourage you to keep us updated with the progress Lightkey is making. Let us know. We'd be more than happy to have you back and see some updates. And I'm sure that there's lots of use case scenarios for Lightkey that maybe you and your team haven't thought of, or improvements that can be made to the product that maybe you're not even aware of, that will come to light when some of our members are using the product out there. So I encourage everybody that's supporting those with disabilities to give the feedback to Guy and his team regarding Lightkey and to make it an even better product. So Guy, I again thank you for your time today, for your dedication to making this product not just a productivity tool, but that for those with disabilities and additional needs. It's fantastic to see the extra features that are in there. We always have these take these as opportunities to put tools such as Lightkey into our toolbox so that we can pull it out when it's appropriate. No doubt we'll be doing that in the future with those that we're working with. So again, keep us up to date, keep in touch, and yeah, I just want to thank you very much again for both of you for taking the time and being able to share this share the Lightkey product with our audience today. So and lastly, everyone here today, thanks for joining us. And just remember, you can't spell education without AT. So until next time, take care and stay safe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doug. It was a very great session. Thanks.